It's September 5th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour. Starting with President Yoon's late-night visit to a hospital ER. With the country's medical sector on edge over a shortage of medical staff due to a mass walkout by junior doctors, President Yuna pledged maximum support to back emergency services, especially during the upcoming Chuseok holiday. South Korea and the U.S. are not ruling out the possibility of North Korea staging major provocations like a nuclear test near the U.S. presidential election in November. Seoul and Washington's key deterrence dialogue body says. The body, for the first time, discussed specific ways to deal with such scenarios. 2 students and 2 teachers were killed in a shooting at a high school in the state of Georgia. A 14-year-old suspect is now in custody, with his exact motive yet to be identified. President Yoon pledged better compensation for doctors and wider access to quality health care for patients as he visited an emergency medical center on Wednesday. According to the presidential office, he toured the Ujeongbu Medical Center in Gyeonggi-do Province to encourage medical staff and ensure medical services run smoothly throughout the upcoming Chuseok holiday. Meeting with hospital officials, he asked what kind of difficulties they face, as he acknowledged that the current compensation scheme for doctors is inadequate and that there is a regional imbalance in access to quality medical services. He promised to fully support reforms to ensure that those working in critical and essential medical services are supported with a stronger compensation, especially in high-risk fields. This visit is the 9th time the president has visited a medical institution since he announced his signature healthcare plans in February, which sparked the ongoing strike by junior doctors and medical professors. And with more ERs having begun to reduce their opening hours due to a lack of manpower, the government is dispatching additional 250 military doctors to the hospitals. Our Lee Si-hu has this report.
The severe shortage of doctors and the consequent reduction in operating hours of emergency rooms that first occurred outside Seoul are also beginning to affect hospitals in the greater capital region. Beginning Wednesday, Ewha Women's University Mokdong Hospital's Regional Emergency Center, which serves Seoul's southwestern districts, will reduce its operating hours. It will not take in any new patients from every Wednesday evening until the following morning, except for the upcoming Chuseok holiday week. Also, Aju University Hospital in Gyeonggi-do Province will only take in a limited number of patients on Thursdays, while the Catholic University of Korea Yeouido St. Mary's Hospital, located in Seoul's main financial district, is reportedly mulling over reducing operational hours during the holiday. The decisions follow in the footsteps of medical centers in Gangwon and Chungcheong-do Province at the start of this week. In response, the government on Wednesday deployed additional military medical officers to hospitals, following a series of similar placements earlier this year.
Government is initiating the 8th deployment of medical doctors today. Of the total 250, 15 deployed today are placed in 5 medical centers with the most urgent need for medical personnel.
The plan is to deploy all 250 doctors by next Monday. Of 409 emergency rooms in South Korea, 27 are on reduced operation, according to the ministry.
Over 90% of doctors who worked in emergency rooms have left. The government is doing its utmost to preserve the system through measures including the daily monitoring of the situation at hospitals.
Despite such efforts, patient groups in the country are calling for better government response measures and for doctors to return to their posts. Many doctors walked out of their jobs after the government announced plans to increase the enrollment quota of medical schools in February. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
The details of the government's pension reform plan were released on Wednesday. It suggests a higher pension contribution rate, but at a different pace for different age brackets. Our Shin Ha-young has the details.
The government's pension reform proposal focuses on fairness and sustainability. The Health Ministry on Wednesday announced a plan that includes gradually increasing the pension contribution rate from the current 9% to 13%. However, the pace of increase will vary by age group to ease the long-term burden for the younger generation.
For those in their 50s, who will receive more benefits compared to their contributions, the rate will rise by 1 percentage point annually over 4 years. For those in their 20s, who will contribute the most over a longer period, it will rise by 0.25 percentage points annually over 16 years.
The government also plans to maintain the current gross pension replacement rate, which is 42%, that being the percentage of pre-retirement wages people will receive at the end.
It was originally set to reach 40% by 2028. However, considering public feedback on the need for both financial stability and better retirement income, it will be raised to 42%.
Details of the proposal came after President Yoon pledged to reform the pension system as the country's rapidly aging society faces the possible depletion of pension funds by 2056. Under the plan, the national pension fund's deficit would be delayed by 13 years and its depletion by 16 years. The government is also looking at adding a so-called automatic adjustment system, which adjusts pension payout amounts based on factors including population changes and economic conditions. The government plans to extend the birth credit benefit too, which was previously available only from the birth of a second child, to include the first child and apply it immediately upon childbirth. The plan also includes expanding military service credit to recognize the entire duration of mandatory military service rather than the current 6 months. Marking the first government pension reform in 17 years, the proposal is subject to approval by the National Assembly. 신하영, Arirang News.
North Korea has sent a new wave of balloons likely carrying garbage toward South Korea. At around 9 p.m. on Wednesday, Seoul's Joint Chief of Staff warned people, especially in the northern regions of Gyeonggi province, to be aware of falling objects and to call nearby military or police facilities if faced with such balloons. Some of those balloons are reportedly being spotted across Seoul this morning. This is Pyongyang's 12th launching of balloons towards South Korea and the first in 25 days. Officials from South Korea and the U.S. have discussed responses to what they believe could be a major provocation by North Korea around the time of the U.S. presidential election in November. Our Kim Jong-sil reports.
The fifth meeting of the Extended Deterrence Strategy and Consultation Group, or EDSCG, between South Korea and the U.S. took place in Washington on Wednesday local time. For the first time at the meeting, the two countries conducted a scenario-based discussion on North Korea's nuclear threats to strengthen policy planning and coordination. South Korea's first Vice Foreign Minister Kim Yoon told reporters after the meeting that the EDSCG discussed a range of possible provocations by Pyongyang and responses around the time of the upcoming U.S. presidential election. He said both Seoul and Washington believe a major provocation around that time cannot be ruled out as North Korea continues to enhance its nuclear capabilities and is continuing provocations including jamming GPS signals or sending balloons carrying waste. Kim and Deputy Minister for National Defense Policy Cho Chang-rae led the South Korean delegation, while Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security Bonnie Jenkins and Acting Deputy Undersecretary of Defense for Policy Kara Abercrombie led the U.S. delegation. The U.S. Department of Defense released a statement shortly after the meeting and said the U.S. reiterated its ironclad commitment to draw on the full range of its military capabilities, including nuclear, to support extended deterrence for South Korea. The statement added that both sides reaffirmed that any nuclear attack by the DPRK against the ROK will be met with a swift, overwhelming, and decisive response, adding that any nuclear attack by North Korea against the U.S. or its allies is unacceptable and will result in the end of that regime. The EDSCG serves as a key annual forum on security strategy affecting the Korean Peninsula and broader Indo-Pacific. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The Czech Republic is confident that it will sign a final contract with South Korea for the construction of the Dukovany nuclear power plant project. Czech National Security Advisor Tomáš Pojar made that clear during his visit to South Korea this week. For more, we are joined by Professor Song Se-ryun this morning. Welcome, Professor Song.
Good morning.
So a Czech special envoy met with South Korean President Yoon yesterday, and he showed no doubt that the $18 billion project will be sealed with South Korea. Can we say the deal is safe and good to go?
Well, good sign, but not yet, because at this point, the South Korea's Korea Hydro and Nuclear Power has been selected as the preferred bidder. We beat out other competitions, but the negotiation process is going on. So we have not really sealed the deal. So as anything in the contract practice, until it's signed and sealed, even when everything can go right, you can always say that there is a room for something to falling through. But it is a very hopeful sign that the delegation has come and tried to assure us that this is a partnership that can go miles.
Right, nothing to be assured until everything is, inked. But in the meantime, what do you think that makes South Korea the most, suitable, like you said, the most preferred bidder for this project?
Well, Korea is a major nuclear, in terms of nuclear plant, it's a major power. Sixth in terms of the output. And we have 23 reactors and 6 power plants in total. So we have technology, we have experiences. And on top of that, there is a good competitive pricing tradition and also safety records. So I think that Korea can go up against any nuclear reactor makers in the world. So this is another big step if they can ink the deal with the European countries, probably making the market a lot bigger.
Right, and also what's notable is that the visit came amid an appeal by U.S. nuclear power company Westinghouse and also a French utility company EDF against the Czech Republic's decision to have South Korea as the most preferred bidder. Does this have any potential to get in the way in the near future?
Well, certainly it increases the uncertainty part of it. But in terms of the appeal by the Westinghouse, they had the similar claims before, which was dismissed. So probably their claim may not be that strong. And the EDF's appeal is about the process of selection rather than accusing the Korean companies did anything wrong. So I think I think it's hopeful that we can kind of beat it through. But there is always a potential that this kind of appeals can delay the process, which could be sometimes very problematic in the business deal.
Right, and it's not just Czech Republic. Slovakia, I hear, is also showing great interest in South Korea for its own nuclear power plant project. Let's talk about the Western other countries' interest in collaborating with South Korea.
Yes, for better or worse, the nuclear power is a major option in terms of producing a very clean energy. Of course, it has its own downfalls as well. But I think that those countries that are trying to get ahead in terms of energy crisis, especially when the Russia option is not a very attractive one, I think that there will be a lot of interest heaped on the Korean technology and what we can give them in terms of the power generation.
And on top of collaborating for the nuclear project, the Czech envoy also expressed, hopes of expanding cooperation with Seoul in the field of semiconductors, defense, and even transportation. Professor Song, what is there for the Czech Republic to offer us, South Korea?
Well, those areas that you mentioned as exactly the ones we can look for. The country is located in a very strategic location, so transportation is a hub, and they have a burgeoning semiconductor industry, and those kind of things can mean that we can form a partnership that can be very productive. I think that more than anything, the Czech Republic is looking at not just a power plant, but what kind of business partnership they can build with a company that offers a lot of promises and advanced technologies. So I think it's a win-win situation if they can manage this prospect well.
Alrighty, Professor Song, thank you so much for your time and your insight this morning. You have a wonderful day.
You too. Thank you.
A Russian airstrike on the western Ukrainian city of Lviv on Thursday killed 7 people and injured at least 64 others. According to the city's mayor, more than 50 houses in the city center were destroyed, along with 2 medical facilities and 2 schools. Among the dead were a mother and her 3 daughters. The Russian Defense Ministry claims that it struck the city's defense industry facilities using Kinzhal hypersonic missiles. The latest airstrike comes just a day after Russia struck a military institute in the central city of Poltava, killing 53. A school shooting in the U.S. state of Georgia has left at least 4 dead and 30 others injured. Police have a 14-year-old suspect in custody as they continue to investigate a motive. Lee Seung-jae reports.
As of July 2024, there were 35 incidents of shootings on school grounds and college campuses in the United States. That figure rose on Wednesday in the state of Georgia when a 14-year-old fired at students and teachers at Appalachia High School in Barrow County. 2 students and 2 teachers were killed, and 30 others were wounded in the shooting, and authorities are investigating whether the victims were targeted. Initial reports said just 9 were injured during the shooting, but that figure rose significantly. Police say the teenage shooter, who has been named as Colt Gray, surrendered to authorities quickly after being confronted. The local county sheriff said Gray was cooperating with authorities and would be charged with murder and tried as an adult. As police continue to question the suspect, no motive has been revealed, and it's unknown whether there was any connection between the shooter and the victims. Authorities also say they do not know yet how the shooter was able to obtain the firearm. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland said the U.S. Department of Justice was ready to provide support to the victims and their families, adding he was devastated for the families involved. President Joe Biden also said he was mourning those who were killed, while calling on Congress to pass common-sense gun safety legislation. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Kim Xiang, and this is The World Now. We begin today in the U.S., where the Justice, State and Treasury Departments announced coordinated action on Wednesday to counter alleged Russian interference in the 2024 U.S. presidential election. The U.S. charged and sanctioned some 10 Russian state media executives while restricting Kremlin-linked broadcasters, claiming Moscow is behind what the U.S. calls a widespread election interference campaign. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland accused the state broadcaster RT, formerly known as Russia Today, of paying a Tennessee company $10 million to create and distribute content to U.S. audiences with hidden Russian government messaging. RT Editor-in-Chief Margarita Simonian was listed as one of the 10 people sanctioned for attempting to bring down public trust in our institutions. 2 entities were additionally sanctioned, 32 internet domain names were seized, and the U.S. government has offered a $10 million reward for information on hackers in the group Russian Angry Hackers Did It. White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby said that Russia's program aims to reduce support for Ukraine, bolster pro-Russian policies and interests, and influence U.S. voters, while a Treasury official said that American influencers are being covertly recruited. The Russian state media, RT, responded to the U.S. accusations by joking that, quote, 3 things are certain in life: death, taxes, and RT's interference in the U.S. elections. Now to Brazil, where firefighters on Wednesday succeeded in reducing a massive wildfire that has burned for 2 days and destroyed 20% of the national forest of Brasilia, a conservation area outside the country's capital. The fire broke out at the peak of the dry season in an area where over 56 square kilometers of woodland protects springs, which are the source of 70% of Brasilia's freshwater. An official in charge of managing the forest called the fires an environmental crime, but couldn't confirm if the fires were started intentionally. The forest had already been halved in size in 2022 when far-right former President Jair Bolsonaro approved the land for urban development. Consumers in the Middle East are reportedly boycotting Coca-Cola and Pepsi as global Western brands face backlash in the Israel-Gaza conflict. Other American brands such as McDonald's and Starbucks are also facing anti-Israel boycotts, with market share for global brands falling 4% in the first half of 2024 in the Middle East, according to Nielsen IQ. This, however, has fueled an increase in the sales of local sodas. In Egypt, sales of cola brand V7 tripled, including exports in the Middle East and the wider region compared to the last year. This contrasts the 7% sales decline for Western beverage brands in the first half of the year across the region, where sales of Coca-Cola in some countries, including Egypt, declined by double-digit percentage points until the end of June. Australian Olympian breakdancer Rachel Gunn, also known as Raygun, has apologized to the nation's breakdancing community for the backlash following her controversial performance at the Paris Games, but insisted that her record speaks to her being the country's best B-girl. The 37-year-old was eliminated from the B-girls competition with a score of 0, prompting both ridicule and praise on social media for her performance, which included hopping like a kangaroo and flailing on the floor. Gunn, who lectures in cultural studies in Sydney's Macquarie University, apologized but added she cannot control how people react. Now asked by TV channel Network 10 whether she believes she is Australia's best female breakdancer, she added that she was the top-ranked Australian B-girl in 2020 and 2022 and 2023.
Good morning. Yesterday's sizzling of midsummer level heat meant Seoul woke up after the first tropical night in 9 days. A heat advisory has been expanded to more of the western regions for now, but the east will be a scorcher with readings to go up even further this afternoon. But central regions will be seeing 3 to 4 degrees lower daytime highs with rain. 5 to 10 millimeters of showers are in the forecast for most parts of Korea during the day before all letting up tonight. Rain brings slight heat relief to Seoul at 29 degrees, which is about 4 degrees lower than yesterday. Gyeongju, however, soars to 34 degrees from morning's upper teens. And southern provinces will be under plenty of sunshine again with strong UV rays, so don't forget your sun protection. This year's summer just doesn't want to let go. We'll be seeing highs in the low 30s through the first half of September with on and off rain across Korea. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That's all we have at this hour. Thanks for staying with us.